Oh, thank you. How's that? I think I'll just hold it up here the whole time, right? We're not live yet, right? Okay. Okay. So, ready? Ready? Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the League of Women Voters of Ventura County. This is our forum tonight on the Port Hueneme City Council race. We have with us the 5 candidates. And tonight what we're going to do is have opening statements from each candidate, and then we'll take questions from the audience, and we'll wrap up with closing statements. We randomly assigned the seats earlier, and we are going to do our opening statements with Laura Hernandez a little later, and we'll work our way towards me, and then we'll reverse that later. But first, what I'd like to ask of everybody who is able to, please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And at this time, it's my pleasure to introduce the President of the League of Women Voters, Betsy Patterson.
Good evening. I'm Betsy Patterson, President of the League of Women Voters, and I just want to let you know a little bit about the League of Women Voters. We had some questions when people came in through the door, so I wanted to clarify some things. The League of Women Voters was formed in 1920, almost 100 years ago, after the passage of the 19th Amendment, which gave women the right to vote. The suffragists, who had been working for 72 years to get the right to vote, realized now they had 27 million women who had never voted and didn't know the process or how to assess the candidates and the issues. And so they formed the League of Women Voters with the purpose of registering voters, educating the voters so that they would be informed about the candidates and the issues so they could vote wisely. From its beginning, the League of Women Voters has been a nonpartisan organization. We neither support nor oppose any particular candidate or any particular party. We are fairly neutral. We have printed and online materials that talk about ballot propositions, for example, and we also recommend that if you're interested in finding out about candidates, that you go to a website called the Voter's Edge, where candidates are encouraged to put their statements so that we can all understand what they feel is important for you to know about them. When you leave tonight, you can pick up a little bookmark that has information about the Voter's Edge and how to get to it. And it provides useful information. Sometimes I forget this, but this was one of the questions coming in. The League of Women Voters is not just for women anymore. Since 1974, we have invited men to be members of the League of Women Voters. At that time, we were one of the few exclusive clubs that opened their doors to the opposite sex. So basically our role here is to allow you to ask questions of the candidates and to get informed so that you can make wise decisions when you vote on November 6th. And please be sure to vote on November 6th. League of Women Voters model or mission is empowering voters and defending democracy, and that's why we're here tonight. Thank you all for coming, and thank you candidates for being here to present your positions on questions that the audience asks.
I think I have an extra one.
Okay, everyone, we have our timers. Candidates are sitting right there. The timers will show you when you have 30 seconds remaining, and then you'll see a sign 15 seconds, and then stop, and I will cut you off if you go past that. So, as I said, we'll begin with opening statements. Every candidate will have a minute and a half for opening statements, as well as the questions we're going to be answering. So we'll begin with our first candidate, Laura Hernandez.
Good evening. Thank you, David, and thank you to the League of Women Voters of Ventura County for hosting tonight's forum, and especially thank you to our audience who are here tonight, taking time out of their evening to become civically engaged in the process in our democracy. I believe that our reasons for being here are very much the same. We want good leadership. We want a city council that can work together, a city council who can decide key issues and make the tough decision doing what's right for the greater good. We want a city council who can effectively engage all members of our community. As a candidate for city council, I bring leadership, local government experience, and a passion for public service. My vision for your city council representative is to enhance public safety services so we all feel safe in our homes, neighborhoods, beaches, and parks. I will work hard to address our city's aging infrastructure and make sure our streets, sewer, and water systems are safe and functioning properly. I also believe in fiscal accountability of your hard-earned tax dollars is a priority and that you deserve to receive the best city services available. Finally, I will work hard to galvanize our community to become more involved in local government and our neighborhoods. Together, we can make a better Port Hueneme. Thank you again for being here. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, and thank you all for holding your applause. At the League, we ask the audience to not applaud during the event. I'll give you an opportunity at the very end. That just lets everything move more quickly. Our next candidate is Dan Tullis.
Hi. I'd like to echo everything that Laura said, because I don't really think that anybody's here expecting us to do anything less than do our best for the city of Port Hueneme. And I believe, too, that in the effort to do so, we'll have to work as a team. And that will include everyone that's here and those who are not here. I intend to appeal mostly to the citizens to come in, and not only the questions tonight, but whenever you have a question, to contact the council. I'll speak for myself, me in particular, because I believe that listening to you is going to give us a better idea of what we need to do for the city. I have ideas about what needs to be done, but I will not be living on those ideas. I will expect and hope and actually go out and ask for input from the community, because I can't know everything, in spite of what I try to do, which is to know everything. If I do know everything, I'm not going to tell you. I'll keep it to myself. But because I don't, I have to rely on you. And I hope that when there's a question, you will let us know what we can do to answer it. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next candidate is Richard Rawlings.
I'm an 11-year resident.
If we could turn on your microphone, please, Richard. There's a little on switch. Thank you.
My name is Rich Rollins. I am an 11-year resident for the city of Port Hueneme. I've been married for 41 years. I moved here from Los Angeles to get away from the crowds, to be in this friendly, small-town neighborhood atmosphere, and I vow to keep it that way. I have a career of over 40 years working and managing community services programs in 3 different cities with different needs and different goals: Culver City, Alhambra, and the city of Santa Monica. During that time, I developed and operated budgets in good times and in bad times. My practice has always been to listen to the community, be creative, and develop programs that provide the best service for the community, but still that we can afford those. To do this, I have worked in a cooperative manner with stakeholders in our community: businesses, federal agencies, local nonprofits, and you, the citizens. Some of my goals in the different cities was developing childcare facilities, senior counseling programs, and skate parks for the kids. Since moving here, I've used that same energy, skill, and dedication to do a number of volunteer programs for the city. I'm the co-developer of REACH, Recreation, Education,
Thank you, Richard.
and Arts.
Our next candidate is Jim Hensley.
Good evening, everybody. It's great to see the number of people in here. You're actually taking part of the government process. I want to thank you for that. I want to thank you, the League of Women Voters, who is so dedicated for every election. They do a fabulous job. And I want to let everybody know that all 4 candidates are friends of mine. So I think each of them are great. Whoever the two gets on, just as long as one don't bump me off, I will be glad to serve with them, and it'll be a whole change in dynamics for our board. They're honest and people that have a lot of integrity. That's my statement. Thanks.
Thank you. Our next candidate is Stephen Gama.
Thank you. First, I'd like to thank all of you for coming out tonight. And I especially want to thank the League of Women Voters for organizing tonight's forum. The City Council itself can't make the city of Port Hueneme problem-free. Only when the community, the council, the city administration, and the city employees come together as one can we really find positive progress. If elected, I will use my energy and passion to encourage community involvement. We have an opportunity to close the pages of the past problems and start anew. We need open and honest debates without personal attacks on those whom we disagree. I'm running for Port Hueneme City Council to provide energy and passion and disciplined focus to achieve positive progress. For me, it's all about the 3 B's: the budget, the beach, and business. In regards to the budget, line by line, review all revenues and expenditures, and at the end of the budget year, if we didn't meet our targets, reevaluate the policy that affects those items. In regards to the beach, we are a beach community. Hueneme Beach is a revenue generating machine, and we need to increase beach activities to increase our revenue from the beach. Business, we need to encourage business to expand in the city by making our city the business-friendly city by the sea. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to begin with you, Dan, the next question. So this is the first question, actually, and you also have a minute and a half. The question is, what can the city do to attract jobs that pay a livable wage? What will you do to improve business here in Port Hueneme?
I believe that considering what a livable wage is now, that's going to be almost impossible. But almost doesn't count. I believe, and I've had this thought for quite some time, as many of you know, I'm an entertainer. I think we have the facilities and the location that would be quite attractive to bring in more entertainment-oriented sorts of activities, including my own. Therefore, I would be one that would try and bring it in myself. And that would, in fact, increase the profile of the city, which I believe is necessary in order for us to attract other businesses. If we can make successes of some of the smaller businesses that make enough noise or splash or bombast, then I believe we'll bring in more forms of entertainment, forms of business of various kinds that will increase the income of everyone in the area, because businesses can also branch out like a spider web from that entertainment center.
Thank you. Jim, we're going to go to you for the same question. How will you attract new business to Port Hueneme, and how can those jobs pay a livable wage?
Well, I'm kind of proud of what we've done to thus far. We've brought in over $600,000 in extra revenue this year from January to present that we didn't have before. It looks like it might be $1 million by the end of the year, maybe 1.2 million. Also, we've sold commercial properties, not us, the city, but commercial properties have sold over $10 million in just the last 6 months. That, to me, is phenomenal. A lot of people are being employed now. Our employment has gone up considerably, and most of these people are being earning at least $20 an hour, if not more. And I will continue to work forward to develop this community. Thank you.
Thank you. Laura, you're up next. Same question. How will you attract new business, and how will you ensure that the jobs pay a livable wage?
The ability for the city to attract businesses is very important, and the City Council has done a yeoman's job in bringing in the cannabis business to the city. However, we cannot rest our laurels on that. We have to be able to attract a variety of businesses into the city that can hire workers at a livable wage. We must treat our workers well by giving them the wages that they deserve. I think we need to be friendly to businesses in a way that makes it easier for them to go through the permitting process. That they get the assistance of the city, from the city workers that they need, the city staff that they need, that they get the coaching they need to find a place here to establish their businesses.
Thank you. Stephen, same question?
Yeah, I'd like the city.
Might as well all just leave your microphones on the whole time.
Thank you. I'd like the city to become the friendly business city by the sea. I think a lot of our local businesses are frustrated with the time it takes to expand and to reach out and service more customers. I also believe that the cannabis, while it's really good, I'm a little concerned that we've issued 11, I think, permits in this very small town. There's only 6 supermarkets for food. All of us need food, and I don't know how many of us use cannabis, but it seems to me that we might have gone a little bit over on that, and that when competition and the winners are created, that perhaps we'll be with empty buildings and blight afterwards. Grants, I think we should focus on grants to get youth employed. I just discovered a grant that I'm working on right now that could bring up to $50,000 where we could give youth employment during the summer months. Reach out to the hotels that are successful. The Holiday Inn is pretty successful, and I'd like to see us reach out to them and see if they would consider expanding and better serving our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Rich, we'll wrap up with you. Same question. How will you attract new business to Hueneme, and how can those jobs pay a livable wage?
Okay, in many cases, our major company in the city is the port, and the port perhaps provides the best livable wages for our community. I'm a big advocate for developing small businesses because small business owners will be able to develop a livable wage. I'm probably not too high on bringing in a whole lot of businesses into our community, large businesses. We are a regional Ventura County. There's a number of businesses throughout Ventura County that I think we can provide livable wages. I would like people to be able to work outside of Port Hueneme, come back to Port Hueneme and live a nice, quiet, peaceful life. That's about it.
Okay, thank you. Jim, we're going to start with you on the next question. And we have several questions about this issue of homelessness. So Jim, will you comment about what you view as the solutions to homeless, especially since it seems we have waves of homeless who may be coming from outside the area? And please share with us your thoughts. Jim.
Thank you for the question. And that's something that is beyond my ability at this part. I see homelessness that's expanding exponentially. More and more people are going homeless. They can't keep up with the economy, even though some of them are on Social Security benefits. They sleep in their cars. They can't afford the rent, and they can't afford the food. It's got to be a local. When I say local, I mean as far as the county. We have to get the county to help us out. We have to get the state to help us out. And I've reached out to some of our state leaders and our county leaders to see what we can do to get to homeless. I don't like to see people suffering like they have done, they're doing at the present time. Some of them need mental help, and unfortunately our jails are becoming more of the mental health facilities than there shouldn't be. There are ways to do it, but we have to work together on it. So, and one of the things that I'm bringing out is they come in, a lot of them don't have a lot of social justice ideas, or they don't have social contracts for people, and they steal, they lay in front of sidewalks, they disturb businesses, and there's ways to get around that. So thank you very much. Good question.
Thank you. Laura, you're up next. Same question about what you would do about the rising issues with homelessness and also mental health addiction.
Yeah. Thank you, David. Homelessness is a growing problem in our county and throughout the state of California. I think the first step for us is to get our minds and our hearts around why people are homeless, and there's no one reason behind it. We have our ideas why people are out on the street, but I think we have to look further beyond what we believe. I mean, they're just not out there because they have mental health issues or drug issues. They're not all thieves. They have a range of problems that we, first of all, have to understand. I know that I believe that we lack the direct services to help the homeless in our community, but we can collaborate with the county behavioral health, and we can collaborate with the other cities in addressing the needs of our homeless here in this community. I was instrumental in the city of Santa Paula standing up a one-stop program through the church, the Methodist church there. It was a wonderful collaboration between the county, the city, the Methodist church, and a local nonprofit, and I would like to see something like that mirrored here. It's a one-stop center where homeless can go and get medical assistance, medical screening, showers, something to eat, and a fresh set of clothes. I think we need to do what we can to work collaboratively. That is one of the things that I think I do the best. I have a history of collaborating with nonprofits, other government agencies.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you.
Stop you there. Stephen, same question to you. What are your solutions to the homeless problem?
We have a homeless lady in the city that I've seen every day for 20 years. Her name's Janet, and she is the model homeless citizen. The problem is the drug-addicted folks that come roaming in from outside the city, and in my case, park at Miranda Park. Miranda Park is falling into disarray, and it's a wonderful place for the homeless to hang out because they could hide behind hills and bushes and stuff like that. And it seems to me that as we let the park deteriorate, it becomes a haven for the homeless people. So I agree that there's very many reasons why people become homeless. Some people enjoy being homeless, like Janet. She has never caused a problem that I can see in and around the city, yet I see her every day and I wonder where she sleeps at night. However, the problems at Miranda Park are getting out of control. Just the other day, a homeless person stole mail out of my neighbor's mailbox, and we consistently see these people drifting in and out around our neighborhood from Miranda Park. So I don't know what the solution is, but I know that the first step at solving a problem is identifying it, and we need to identify places like Miranda Park is where the problems are developing. So it's a tough issue, and we need to also collaborate with our neighbors to work on the issue, because when they cleaned out Perkins Road, they ended up at Miranda Park.
Thank you. Richard, you're up next. Same question.
Homelessness is a state, a national, and probably an international issue. When I worked for the city of Santa Monica, we were kind of almost known as the home for the homeless. And we took a number of different steps to deal with different types of homeless. We have a group of homeless that choose it as a lifestyle. That's a very small number. We have a group of people that are homeless because they had a bad lot in life, and they really want to get back and contribute to the community. One of the things that we did was we developed what we called the swash lock, so that, imagine if you're a homeless person, and you apply for a job, you need a place for them to call, you need a place to take a shower, and those types of things, so that you can be a productive member. So those are some positive types of things. Throwing the homeless in jail, not a good solution. Parks are not made to be campgrounds. We need to find housing on a regional issue, and we need to attack this on a regional issue to be able to deal with the homeless community. I teach tennis at Miranda Park. I'm there every day. And I will agree with Steve. There are some homeless there that are very, very nice. One of the goals...
I have to stop you there, Richard. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay. And Dan, we'll wrap up with you on this question about solving the homeless problem.
Excuse me. As I sat here listening and thinking about this, I came up with 5 different scenarios, and I'll start with my own. I was between jobs as an actor. My parents moved, and I was homeless for about a week while I went to Oxnard College, lived in my car. Luckily, someone heard me talking about it and let me stay in their 2-bedroom place on Channel Islands Harbor with nothing but a fireplace in December, and brought my 2 children, and we camped out in the house. So I've been there, and so when you talk about homeless people, please use a broad spectrum when you think about it. Not everybody's out there on purpose, not everybody's lazy, not everybody's stupid or sick. And some people are addicted. In order to make sure that we treat the homeless properly, I think we need to think of ourselves as being in that spot at some point or other. When somebody walks up and asks you for $1, give it to them. Unless, you know, like the woman yesterday who said, my boyfriend is part owner of this liquor store, but they won't let me have any. She wanted to borrow $1. I didn't give it to her. I'm sorry. I'm not buying it for me, so I'm not going to buy it for you. But the point being, of course, that if we find a way to get as many people as possible into a location that is safe and clean and that we're all aware of so that we're not afraid of them every time we see them, I think it'll be the right move. How we do that is another question. This is Southern California. You're going to live here in Minnesota? Here.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to start the next question. Stephen, you'll be first on this one. I think this is something that I've asked here many times in the years past when we've done forums. Stephen, please comment on how you think the city can better get along with the port without the port necessarily dictating city policy. So share with us your thoughts about the relationship between the city and the port.
Well, we need to collaborate. We need to talk about the issues that affect both of us. As the port grows, so does the traffic. And as the port expands, so does the job base. So it's a very good relationship. I think it's a really good problem to have. But we need to sit down and we need to talk across the table. And we need to work through a process that probably spans several months. And we need to avoid lawsuits and claims and problems like that. But I think realizing one thing that happened recently that I really liked, I know that Jess Herrera had been complaining, seeing an unsafe intersection by the museum, and the city listened and the city fixed it. It may not be the best fix, but it improved that intersection for the first time. There's flashing lights now for pedestrians. So that was the result of good collaboration and a very positive, I won't say solution, but a very positive action was taken by both working together. So I think we could do a lot more of that, and I would definitely be interested in being one to help bring those kind of discussions together and make it better for both.
Thank you. Richard, you're up next on this same question about the relationship between the city and the port. Any thoughts about that? Any ways to improve how much funding we get from the port?
The port, as I mentioned, is the biggest business within our community. If the port does well, we do well. The port has also been a good neighbor to our community. When I earlier mentioned, I co-founded an organization called REACH, Recreation, Education, Arts, Culture in Hueneme. The port has been, through the Community Benefit Fund, the port has been a strong supporter of things that create a good quality of life within our city. Some of those examples have been, if you have kids or grandkids, the movies at the park, the youth involvement fair. For those seniors, when the city was going to have to not fund the senior Thanksgiving, the Community Benefit Fund helped make that happen. So I think it's very important that we don't look at the port as a mean ogre per se. At the same time, I want to keep this small community atmosphere within our city. And I look, and the port business, the port employers are also our residents in many cases. And so we need to work together.
Thank you. And Dan, we'll go to you next for your thoughts about the relationship with the port and possibly increasing funding from the port.
I love the port. When I first came on board, we had a hostile, the city.
I'm sorry, Jim.
Oh.
I said Dan.
Dan.
Yeah. So we'll just start that.
He was doing great.
My hearing aids, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So, Dan, same question to you about
Sure.
the port.
My view of the port is similar to any other big business. When someone builds a football stadium, they say it's your football stadium, but you pay to get in. You give them money so that they can make a big load of money. My question about the port, and I must admit, I'm not that up on the problems we've had with it, but it is the only deep water port between Los Angeles and San Francisco. So it seems like we're in a pretty good position, except that we can't shut them down, and they're not going to leave. So there seems to me that this teamwork that we are all wanting to talk about should be much easier to do than have problems and lawsuits. I'll look into that and find out what the lawsuits are about, but I can't imagine what they are. 20,000 employees down there, and they want to get more, and the deeper the port, the bigger the ships. And they are, as they've announced recently, the greenest port in the United States because of the changes they've made, for which they're to be congratulated. And that can't be anything but positive for all of us. So as regards big business, which they are, the biggest in the area, who's going to be the hostage in that unless we have good negotiation with them? And I think we can even that out without getting into too much angst. That's the teamwork aspect again.
Thank you. Laura, same question to you about the relationship with the port, possibly increasing funding from the port.
Thank you, David. I actually think that the relationship between the city and the port has improved in the last year, and with our current city council, thanks to Councilman Mayor Wilberg and other members of the city council. This year, through the benefit fund, they provided funds to create a disaster preparedness program here in the city. That's been really helpful in getting citizens engaged and knowing their neighbor. In terms of increasing funding, one of the ways that we could increase funding is through the Homeland Security grants that the port receives. This year, I believe they received $360,000. When I was with the County Office of Emergency Services, I worked very closely with the port to ensure that the cities got their fair share, or at least some share, of these grant funds. And these funds come through every year, and I think it's important that our city police force and other city departments have an opportunity to weigh in and put in grant requests for that kind of funding. Thank you.
And Jim, now we're up for you. Okay. So same question on the port.
Wait, my turn.
I already told you I love the port, okay? When I first came here, we had a hostile relationship with the port. We had a big lawsuit against them. Our city did not want to back off of it, and I thought it was preposterous. I fought for almost a year to get them to drop the lawsuit. We finally did. That port is so vital to us, and they wanted to be our friends, but we wanted to attack because the city was running out of money, so they thought the port has more money, so we'll try to grab it. That's not the right attitude. So consequently, I believe we have a far better relationship with the port. I work with the board over there, most of our other city councilmen now, and we have to keep the port going because they are part of us. And it's very important that we support the port all the way through. Try to attend some of their board of director meetings on alternate Mondays from ourselves. They're right here. Find out what they do. Support the port. Thank you.
Thank you. And we're going to begin with you, Richard, on this next question.
Oh, shucks.
How would you work? Let's talk about the environment here in Port Hueneme. What would you do to help keep the environment clean, and your thoughts about climate change?
Well, global warming is a real negative thing. However, it's actually benefited me this summer. And I'll tell you why. Usually it's too cold to swim in Hueneme Beach without a wetsuit. And the water was warm enough this year where I could actually swim, so I felt good about that. I think as far as keeping the environment clean, I think it's all up to you. We need to have volunteers. We have very limited city staff now because of budget cuts. And we need a sense of volunteerism where you go out there and you help clean up the parks. You go out there and you help clean up the beaches. Those are all very important things. We're in it together. We need to embrace some of the technology. I can see in the future having electric police cars and electric and solar heating in our city hall and our community buildings. Those are all, present technology that I know we're beginning to embrace, but we need to continue to embrace those. We need to at a very early age, educate kids on the need to save their environment, to bring back to the environment. We through REACH.
Thank you. Richard, I have to stop you there. Thank you. Just a reminder, the timers are there for your benefit. Stephen, same question to you. What would you do as far as keeping the environment clean and your thoughts about climate change?
I'd get a white bucket, a pick stick, and I'd start picking up trash in front of my house or in the park or on the beach or wherever you see it. If everyone does a little bit of community service, we can make a big impact. So when it comes to climate change, way above my pay grade and expertise. I don't think that we as a city could impact climate change. However, I think we as a city can improve our own environment by using clean technology. The port has done a wonderful job in doing that, and I remember 10, 15 years ago when you would see the boats sitting there docked up, and if the wind was right, the diesel smoke would come right over our neighborhood right over here. So I think as a city and as a port, I think we all need to control our own environments, and I would like to encourage all of you to control your own environment and keep it clean and do what you can do to make it better. We participate in the beach cleanup every year. For the third year, Laura and I were site captains, and it's great to see all these young kids come out and help. Recently, we went to REACH, and we got 30 buckets and 30 pick sticks to help us, again, take care of our environment. And it all started with a man named Ted Waddell, and he's no longer with us, but we're trying to keep his memory alive. And he was the original trash picker with a white bucket in and around Port Hueneme. And I think all of us could do just a little bit. It'll help a lot.
Thank you, Stephen. Jim, you're up next. Same question to you about keeping the environment clean and your thoughts about climate change.
Thank you, David. It's an arduous task, and I think we've been making headway. One of the big problems we face is some of the homeless just don't think about it, and they trash all over. They throw trash into our J Street drains, not J Street, J Street and the other one that goes down to the beach. And they live under there. So somehow or another we have to work with these people to get them to understand. And I don't know how to do that at this point, but that's the other thing is we have to be conscientious about it. I want to see implementing screens that catch all of the water that comes in on the rain so it doesn't go out to the ocean again. A lot of it is just educating ourselves, our people, and being conscientious. Like Steve Gama here, he's conscientious. He works on that beach dedicatedly, and I think that's absolutely great. If every citizen here did that, we'd be much further along. But if we work at it, we can do it. So everybody reach up and raise your hand if you want to help clean up this city. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Jim, and we'll move on. Dan, you're up next.
Okay, well, this is climate change. Wow. In my travels, which has been everywhere from Melbourne, Australia to Belgrade, Yugoslavia, when it was still Yugoslavia, as a performer, I've been able to see what's been going on around the planet. While I was in Australia 20 years ago, a chunk of Antarctica broke off the size of Manhattan Island and floated into the ocean. We now have a mass of plastic floating in the Pacific the size of Texas. Every ocean now has a mass of plastic floating in it. A mass. I'm not talking about, a few things floating here and there. One of the things that's going on now and is being laughed at by a lot of people is the end of using plastic straws. It's very easy to stop using plastic straws. Carry your own if you must. Now I've heard that there's a complaint that maybe people who are disabled need a plastic straw. Nobody said get rid of all of them. That allows them to bend in and drink their drink. Regarding the city, everyone has said the same thing. We are all responsible for ourselves. When you see a piece of trash, it isn't that hard to bend over and pick it up for some of us. And the rest, whenever you get a chance, pick something up, throw it away. See somebody drop it, embarrass them into picking it up. I've done it. Could have something to do with my size, but they did it. But if enough people embarrass enough people, we'll clean this up a whole lot quicker than if we wait.
Thank you, Dan. And Laura, we'll wrap up with you on the same question.
Okay, thank you, David. Well, it turns out that littering is one of my biggest pet peeves. And when I was raised, I was taught that the world is not our trash can, that we have to dispose of our trash responsibly, and we need to teach our children that. I think that's very important. I participate along with Stephen in the annual coastal cleanup. We live in a beautiful coastal environment here in Port Hueneme. I think all of us have a responsibility to ensure that we keep our beaches and our parks clean, that we encourage others to do so, whether it's cigarette butts, styrofoam, all of those things that cause littering in our communities. We need to abate that. And we need to encourage businesses to, in terms of addressing climate change, to maybe consider low emissions, go green where possible, avoid using styrofoam. Maybe we will consider getting rid of the plastic straws in our fast food places, just like Malibu and some of the other cities have already done. I think it's important that we look at best practices throughout the state of California in keeping our city clean. Thank you.
Thank you. Laura, we'll go ahead and start with you on the next question. So let's talk about public safety. What are your thoughts, and what will you do to ensure that the city is able to support and maintain its police department?
Okay. Well, public safety is my primary platform. I am 30 years in the field of emergency management, working along police officers and firefighters, and I'm a strong supporter of public safety and keeping our community safe. I am supporting Measure U. I think Measure U will go a long ways in ensuring that our public safety workers, not only our police, but our city workers as well, will have the resources and the tools to ensure that our streets are clean and safe, that we keep our police department intact, that the police department have the resources they need, the staffing that they need to respond to emergencies throughout the city. Public safety is essential to our quality of life here in Port Hueneme.
Thank you. And Dan, we'll go to you with the same question. Your thoughts about maintaining the police department, public safety in general?
As you might imagine, I've been avoiding the police for about 55 years. I try to avoid any contact. No, actually I have. But I think most of us have tried to avoid the police because they tend to represent the worst possible time in our lives, even though that is not what they're here for, and they know it. And I believe they suffer as a result of that. The efforts that they make to protect us all puts them in incredible danger. My father tried to recruit me onto the Oxnard PD, and I said I'd really rather go to Vietnam. At least I'd know everybody over there was up against me. I have a plan that I've come up with a couple of years ago, again as an entertainer, wherein I would hope that you would all participate, where I would bring a police officer in and literally have him stand there and prepare to go out on his beat. And you watch what he goes through to prepare with his family in the room. I don't think enough of us know what they go through when they get out into the street to help us. And I also want them to see what we go through when they approach our vehicle when we've done something that we know we shouldn't have done most of the time. But I think that if we can do that, that forms a bridge between the two sides of that coin. And it is the same coin. They want our safety and we want it too. And I think that's one way we can do it.
Thank you. Up next, Richard, same question to you about maintaining the police department and public safety.
Well, first of all, we have one of the safest, lowest crime communities in Ventura County. That is partly because, or maybe primarily because, we have a fine police chief that's a true community leader. Not only is the police here involved in busting people for doing bad things, but getting involved in the community. If you're a senior and you're of ill health, the police will come by and check out to make sure that you're okay. If you are a youth, they will get involved in various different volunteer programs and promote volunteer programs where the kids can learn how police in a positive nature. Usually our biggest challenge with youth and working with the police is developing at-risk programs for the kids. The Police Explorers is one of the good programs that they've done. Now, can the police department be more efficient? Yes, we all can be more efficient. I believe that we should look into the fact that right now one of the major parts of the police budget is their overtime, and the amount of overtime that we go over each year by maybe we need to hire another police officer, because it's costing us more for all this overtime.
Thank you, Rich. And Jim, we'll go to you next. Same thoughts about public safety in the police department?
I'm so proud of our police department. Our police department is well liked by most of the community. They're very caring. They're a Johnny on the spot. At Hueneme Bay, most of our residents really appreciate how they respond, the kindness and the courtesy. When I first came here on the council 4 years ago, the city wanted to outsource them to the sheriff's department. I knew that wouldn't work. We have a personality that fit with our police department. The problem is that the police department is understaffed. For a town our size, let me put it this way in a different term, the average city on the beach has about 1.5 officers per 1,000 people. This city has 0.9 officers. In other words, about 18 officers for the 23,000 people. And we need about 34 police officers. Our officers are working overtime. And I'm worried because if a guy pulls a 12-hour shift, he goes home, they book somebody else, and he has to come in to fill for the guy to take the perk to county jail. He's maybe had 4 hours of sleep and he's back on duty again. That is not right. Their families are suffering. I support the police department wholeheartedly. Something else that really chapped my hide when I first came here, there was a thought of doing away with our ocean HOLA, Hueneme Ocean.
Have to stop you there, Jim. Sorry, we're out of time.
I'm sorry, thank you.
Okay, Stephen, we'll wrap up with you. The same question about public safety in the police department.
Public safety has to be the #1 priority in each department. We all know that. Chief Salinas has done a wonderful job of reinstituting community policing. One of the greatest things I ever seen in my life was him organizing the Toys for Tots. And there were thousands of toys and a lot of kids that came through those lines. And the whole point was for those kids' first interaction with a police officer to be positive. So maybe it's going to take 10, 15 years for that program to really show us its worth. But clearly it's something that needs to be continued. Police department, like any other department, has a budget. And at the end of the budget year, you got to look at how you did. Either you came in under or over. And if you come over, like on the overtime, then you need to look at alternatives. We need to look at staffing alternatives to try and address that problem. Maybe we do need more police officers. Maybe we need a new staffing schedule where we have 8-hour shifts instead of 12-hour shifts. But to sit back and do nothing, I think, is a real issue for the city. And I think it's time that we know what the problem is, too much overtime, and we need to look at alternatives to solve that problem and keep our police local, because I really appreciate the effort and what they do for us.
Thank you. Dan, we're going to start with you on this next question, and I think instead of getting into the weeds on some of this, let's step back a little bit and hear from all of you candidates. If you were elected, what would be your top 3 priorities, your top 3 issues? What would you do to solve those problems? We'll start with you, Dan.
Wow, I was just talking about that today. I showed a list of things that I wrote down, and it's long. In fact, I was going to bring a readout and just hold it up like that and let everybody think that's what I was going to talk about, because it all applies. Law enforcement, #1, public safety. Health care. It struck me that if you get injured or have a heart attack, you have to go to St. John's to get help. There is no urgent care. There is no clinic. The veterinary hospital even moved from off of Hueneme Road over behind Anna Cappuccino over there. So you're in trouble if that happens, so we need to bump that up a bit. And of course the environment would be the other. The trucks running up and down Hueneme Road at 2 o'clock in the morning doing 45, or this afternoon when I heard a car go by doing probably 90 and speeding up as he approached Ventura Road. It happens all the time. I saw a Mustang and a pickup racing each other down the street. Now, what fool thinks his pickup is going to outrun a Mustang? I don't know. But they were doing 70 miles an hour. So that's another one. That includes law enforcement and pumping stuff into the air. The law enforcement question still is the same. The chief said the other day that they went out and tried to get more people to join the department. And they had, I believe, 5 applicants, and none of them qualified. So they're still short. And they've had injured people. So law enforcement isn't one where we're just going to go pick someone up and put them on the department. Overtime is a result of that.
Thank you, Jim. Dan, sorry.
That's why he was talking.
I'm just making sure everybody's awake. Okay, Jim, you are up next, though. Same question to you. If you're elected, what would be your top 3 priorities?
Okay.
What would you do about them?
Thank you, I appreciate it. Law enforcement, again, is one of my top priorities. I believe this is critical. We all like living in a safe community. People do not want to move to a community that's unsafe. So we have to have more police officers. They need to be better trained. And I really have a lot of respect and support for our police department, but we had to give them some help. Also, another item on the issue, we kind of forget about the elephant in the room. Our city is barely climbing out of being bankrupt almost. And we're starting to get it up into the black figures now, thankfully. But we have to sustain that and stabilize that so we have a good revenue stream coming all the way through, and that's not by increasing people's homeowners' property. And we need to do something for our business licenses. It's outdated, it's not corrected enough, and some people are paying more in their taxes, businesses, and others are paying hardly anything. So we need to look at that. Those are 3 of the most important things: the finances, the police department, and trying to get things working better together, stabilize income.
Thank you. Laura, let's hear your top 3 priorities and solutions.
So my top 3 priorities are public safety, fiscal responsibility, and civic engagement. Beginning with public safety, I look at public safety globally. Yes, we have a police department. We want to keep the police department here, but we also want to build collaborative relationships and partnerships with our fire department, with our other police agencies throughout the county, and we want to keep those relationships strong. We also need to recognize that everybody has a role in public safety, not just law enforcement and fire. Our city workers have a role in public safety as well. And so again, by passing Measure U, by looking at other revenue streams, I think we need to be able to fund our police department to a point where they have the resources that they need to do their job, whether it's staffing or equipment, perhaps through the Homeland Security program. I think we need to support our police department. Chief Salinas is doing a good job. I agree with that, and we need to support him in that. As far as fiscal responsibility, we need to look at how our government can improve its efficiencies and look where we can make cuts in or better our procedures so that we are using our time wisely and that we're using our time in a way that is saving the city money and not costing us more.
Thank you. And Stephen, we'll go to you next. Your top 3 priorities.
Budget, beach, and business. We've got to focus on the budget, and whenever you look at the line items in the budget, you got to keep safety as a #1 priority. When it comes to the beach, I want to be the Andy Dufresne of Port Hueneme, and I'm going to write a letter every month to the county and the federal government to get them to restore our beach to where it was pre-2012. In regards to business, we need to make sure our business is comfortable and expanding and working hard to pay tax revenue to the city. We have to be accommodating. We really have to become the business-friendly city by the sea. I think there's too much frustration out there in the business community when they try to expand their business. I think in our budget, we really need to look after our senior citizens. We have a lot of senior citizens that depend on the housing that the city provides for them. And the city has made some progress in that. And I really appreciate the fact that they are addressing the issues that we identified a couple years ago at Mar Vista and other places. So safety is the #1 priority. And then the other issue is wellness. We need to make sure that we have a wellness program to lessen our health and welfare costs and possibly or even our overtime costs amongst the police department.
Thank you. Richard, we'll wrap up with this question with you. Top 3 priorities.
You know, I agree with most what everybody else here has said, but I'll add a few more things. We have a huge budget crisis. I was looking at reports that we're going $1 million in debt each year. We're spending $1 million more than we bring in. Imagine your family budget if that happened. In 3 years, we're not going to have any money. We're not going to be a city. All of the different forums like this where we can decide our own destiny will not be there if we don't learn to put our budget in the right order. Now, how are we going to do that? Cannabis, I think, will be a short-term benefit to us because I think other cities are going to get on the bandwagon. When they see that, you know, Port Hueneme is doing well, I can see Oxnard, I can see various other communities getting involved in that. So then they're not going to be coming to us. We're landlocked here. We're never going to have big businesses here. For that matter, that's why I moved here. I don't want big businesses here. So what do you end up having to do? I'm a supporter of Measure U because I think those taxes are going to be necessary to build police departments, to develop our youth programs. If you look out into our community, there's very little programs for our youth.
Thank you, Richard. Candidates, I'd like to have you note we're about at 8 o'clock. We have only 4 more hours to go. I'd like to ask if you all indulge me. I'd like to change it to just 1-minute answers so we can try and get more of these in. Are you all comfortable with 1 minute? So timers, we'll still give them the mark at 30 seconds, 15, and then stop. But we'll make you work a little harder too. So with that, we're going to begin our next question. 1 minute now, Jim. And the first question, this one goes to you. There was a recent City Council decision to deny a beachfront hotel project. Do you agree or disagree with that decision, and why?
I agree with the decision because I was the guy that pushed it. It's right down in the ocean. It didn't belong there. It should have been somewhere else. There was no way, no plans put forth or the infrastructure. It was ill-conceived, just as a favor, I think, at a discount price to them, so I blocked it.
Thank you. And Laura, your thoughts about the beachfront hotel project? Would you have voted to support that, or do you agree it should have been stopped?
Based on what was being approved, I don't think I believe it was a study to look into the development of that particular area. I personally would have voted for it. I know change is difficult, but we need to find ways to improve and attract people to our city and increase the quality of life and our revenues in order to deliver the services to our city. Being on the city council is tough. You have to make some tough decisions. Sometimes they're unpopular, but you have to do what's good for the greater good of the city. Thank you.
Thank you. And Stephen, same question to you. Do you agree with the decision to deny the hotel project, and why?
Some people say I'm opinionated. And my opinion was that that was a terrible location for a tower and hotel. Right now, we have a lack of sand there, and that seawall is being beat up every night, and rocks are being thrown over on the walking path. My mom every now and then has to cut her walk short because there's rocks across the road. So my opinion was it was just a terrible idea, unless you could get the government to live up to their responsibilities for keeping the sand out in front of the seawall. Last year, the port had to spend $100,000 to support that seawall from failing because of the lack of sand. So again, I want to be the Andy Dufresne of Port Hueneme and write a letter every month until we get our sand back and manage correctly. I think there is room for some development, but it has to be smart development, and we have to be sensitive to people's views and all that. I mean, some of these properties have been there for 20 years.
Thanks, Stephen. Thank you. And Richard, your thoughts about the beachfront hotel project? Would you agree with the denial, or would you disagree?
You know, I worked for the city of Santa Monica for 25 years. They have loads of hotels. they have loads of money coming in, but it creates loads of traffic, it creates loads of trash, it creates an environment that I don't think the residents of this community want. I would much rather see us enhance the things that we already have. We have excellent museums, we have excellent beaches, we have butterfly sanctuaries. I'm all in for ecotourism, bringing people here for the what we have already. I'm a big advocate of bringing in not city-supported, but corporate-supported festivals and events and things like that not only our community can benefit by, but also bring in those tourism dollars so they spend money at our local hotels. I was just not an advocate for the Twin Towers.
Going to have to stop you there. Okay, Dan, we'll wrap up with you on this question about your thoughts on the beachfront hotel project.
Yeah, I heard about that, and I would have to disagree with it because as I look back if you walk out on the pier and turn around and look back at the beachfront, it's pretty sterile looking. I think if we improve the look of the area from the beach, then bringing in a hotel would be smaller than what was proposed. To cut down on the traffic, you need parking. But this is a small community. There are very few 4-lane streets here where if you increase the traffic, people are going to be able to get by. Okay, so I think that if we're going to do something like that, it should be on a smaller scale and bring in more than just the hotel. There's got to be something to draw people here other than a place to lay down and get a good night's sleep. That again goes back to bringing in something that makes people want to come here other than a hotel. It just seems to me that you increase and improve the beach, and that would help bring people in.
Thank you. You all did a great job adjusting to the 1-minute answers. So we're going to start our next question. Stephen, you're up first on this one. Several of you have mentioned it a little bit tonight, so let's talk about Measure U. So this is the 911 and safety services proposition that's going to be voted on here, I think, in Port Hueneme. And so tell us whether you support or don't support it and why.
Having a hard time with Measure U. I'm leaning towards supporting it. And the reason why I have a hard time with it is because of the history of the city of Port Hueneme. You know, over the years, I've seen empty lots become housing developments, and every time the city got a big load of cash and it came into the coffers, and now it's gone. And so I just wonder if they're going to view taxes the same way. So one thing that makes me kind of more supportive, if I get elected, I will be one of those persons screaming from the rooftops to stick to the promises made in the Measure U information, because I have it with me right here. And like I said, I've been struggling with it, and I'm trying to decide, do I really want to support this? And I want to support it, and the reason why I'm hesitant is I want to make sure that the funds are used the way they say it's going to be used.
Thank you. Richard, same question to you, your position about Measure U.
Nearly 40% of the budget is spent on public safety. If we are to operate as a community and a town, we need those funds. We don't want major development in the community. We don't want to increase taxes on essentials. But I think Measure U will help bring in tax dollars from the outside community that will help support our community. Nobody likes taxes, but if we're going to keep a small town community, we have to put forth and help out and pay some of those taxes. If we want to have our own destiny decided in the future, we're going to have to stay a solvent community, and that's the only way I can see us doing it right now, frankly.
Thank you. Dan, same question to you.
When I first heard about this, and I still am in this position, I heard it was a 1% tax hike, and then I heard it was a 1 cent tax hike. So I still haven't figured out exactly what that means yet. And I wonder if anybody out here knows exactly what that means. I asked someone the other day, And she told me one way and then she told me another. And so neither of them made a whole lot of sense when it came down to the totals. Taxes right now for me are a problem because as we watch the economy, and this is a national issue, which I know we're not supposed to talk about, but it's a local issue because all politics are. If, and it's already happening, prices go up 30%, which they already are in just about everything in this country right now, adding another tax is going to be a burden that a whole lot of people aren't going to be able to handle. Child care being one of them, they made a tax reform. $75 is what you get a year in child care relief on that plan if you're making under $30,000. If you're making $1 million, you get $8,500.
Thank you, Dan.
Too much.
And Laura, let's hear your thoughts, please, about Measure U.
Okay, so I've mentioned a couple of times already that I am in support of Measure U. I do, however, think that it's a misnomer to label this measure as a safety services proposition or a 9/11 support initiative. It's actually going to benefit the entire city, not just police department, not just public safety, but it's going to help maintain our infrastructure. It's going to help maintain our local parks and beaches and recreation facilities as well. It's a 1-cent sales tax, which will impact our businesses for sure, but we have to realize that our city council did do their due diligence at looking at other options, and there are no other options. We are losing $1 million a year on our city budget, and desperate times call for desperate measures. We need to do this. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim, we'll wrap up with you, your position on Measure U.
Okay. The city several years ago had a Measure G or a Measure W, something like that. It's still bringing in about $1.5 million, I think, each year. Unfortunately, I feel that the city at that time didn't take care of it and kind of spent it willy-nilly. And this one, Measure U, at least there's supposed to be an oversight committee. I was against it personally, but then I realized we cannot depend on the cannabis industry being sustained and bringing in all the money. We have to stabilize and create a solid economy. Measure U, I voted to put it on the ballot so that people can choose it. I thought that was the most important thing to do. Let the people choose it.
Thank you. Richard, we're going to start with you on the next question, and it's an interesting question, not really about a specific issue, but it's about each of you. Share with us, share with the audience, your experience working with diverse populations. Tell us a little bit about your perspective there. Richard?
As I had mentioned earlier, I worked in 3 different cities. Each of those cities had unique characteristics. It's my responsibility as your city councilman to reach out to them to find out what their needs are. For example, when I worked for the city of Alhambra, they had an immersion Asian community coming into that city. The immigrants from that community did not trust the government, and my job was to reach out to them to find out what they wanted in a community. So we developed programs to help meet those needs. I think it's important, like in our education programs for diverse populations, where their culture is recognized, where we make modifications so that they can get a good education. Those are things that I think would benefit working with.
Thank you, Richard. I have to stop you there. Stephen, same question to you. Share with us your experience working with diverse populations.
For nearly 17 years, I was Director of Risk Management for Oxnard Union High School District. There are 6 schools serving 6 or 7 different communities. Saticoy, El Rio, Oxnard, Camarillo, Nyland Acres, South Oxnard, and the city of Port Hueneme. In each one of those schools, it had a different characteristic. So I spent a lot of time working with youth programs addressing health issues for various student populations at every single school. So yes, it required thought and effort in dealing with the specific community that I was dealing with at the time. So I feel like I'm highly qualified to work and empathize the strengths and weaknesses of any particular community. Had a lot of involvement with the special ed community in the school district, which is very important. And currently I work with brain injury survivors.
Thank you. Jim, same question to you, your experience working with diverse populations.
I've worked in the military with diverse populations a good portion of my career. People are people. I don't care about the skin color or the religion or anything else. It's what kind of person they are. But people do feel estranged a lot of times when they come into a community. It's important that we reach out to these people and to make sure that everybody feels more inclusive. Steve talked about the wellness community. That's helpful. Some of the cities are working with bringing in inclusiveness for wellness and for getting people more involved with their communities. These are things. And then we need to start with the youth. It's critically important to get the youth out away from the gangs and have programs for them.
Thank you. And Dan, you're up next. Your thoughts or your experiences working with diverse populations?
I'm an Air Force brat, so the first 17 and a half years of my life were on Air Force bases. You don't get any more diverse than that, really. Met people from all over the world as a kid. Then I got in the show business, and I've traveled, like I said, from Australia to Yugoslavia to Bali. We were stationed in Okinawa. Admittedly, I was too young to remember it, but I came back speaking Okinawan, so you can imagine what happened when at 4 years old I'd get angry and scream at people in Okinawan. As Jim said, skin color means nothing. I married a blonde, blue-eyed. My grandson, I'm going to nickname Casper because he's that, or he was that white. He's darkening up a little bit. But the point is that I've said this and I've asked people this before. If you see someone walk into the room and all you can see is their skin color, what do you know about them? And frankly, you don't know anything. They may have just come in out of the sun. They may have been in some place where they weren't in the sun. You just don't
have to stop you there, Dan. Thank you. Laura, same question to you. Your experience working with diverse populations.
Thank you, David. In my part-time work, I am an adjunct professor teaching human resources for Cal State University Northridge, and we're currently on the topic of diversity. And I'm teaching my students right now that if they move on into their careers and develop their business or go to work for a corporation, they will find that the more diverse the company is, the more successful it's going to be. I love the diversity here in our community. That's important to me, is having a community that has diverse cultures. I don't believe that you can be colorblind. To be colorblind is to ignore the cultural beauty that is brought by the makeup of our community. When the crash of Alaska 261 occurred, I was instrumental in helping the families bury their loved ones. You had to pay attention to their religious desires, their cultures. You had to be sensitive to their needs. When we shelter people during evacuations and during disasters, you have to be sensitive to dietary needs and dietary differences.
Thank you,
so
Laura.
it's important. Thank you.
We'll start the next question with you. Now, this question is about the several harassment claims that were made against either city council members or some of the staff here. So I'd like to just generalize this a bit. Will you share with us your thoughts about the workplace situation here in the city of Port Hueneme, the harassment claims, and what you think should be happening in the future if you're elected?
Okay, thank you. The harassment claims, the lawsuits absolutely have to stop. We have to treat our employees better. We have to treat them with the dignity and the respect that they need. We have to support our workers and make sure that they are not harassed. We have to be sensitive to their issues as well. We live in an extremely litigious society. I would like nothing more than to find other options than going the legal route in resolving our problems. And I hope, if elected, that I will be one of those team members that will work cooperatively with not only our local stakeholders, but our other city council members as well as our city staff.
Thank you. Dan, same question to you about making it a better workplace environment.
Okay. I wish we'd had 3 minutes in this one.
Jim, it's Dan.
How come my hearing aid hears Jim when you're talking to him?
You can
I'll take the left ear out.
You could blame the moderator. Everyone else does.
He's going to have to say hat. This makes me angry. I'm having a difficult time talking about it right now. I don't accept the idea that boys will be boys. I don't accept, and I haven't since I was a kid and heard about a woman being attacked on the street because of the way she was dressed. I do not care. If someone comes in and they are a human being, they are to be treated the way I want to be treated. I don't care whether they're an employee of the city or whether they're a citizen or whether they're homeless. I just don't care. I'm fed up with it. I'm sick and tired of it. And if you come to me and tell me that someone came after you, I will be the first one behind you to go get them. And I don't care whether it's, and by the way, it's men as well. Because again, the stories you're hearing from Hollywood, I've been around since the beginning of show business, and it includes men. We got to remember that all of these problems we're having involve all of us. Oh, thank you. Good time.
Thank you, Dan. Richard, same question. Let me read it again. What we're trying to find out is if you're elected, how will you ensure a harassment-free workplace for city employees?
Okay. As a city councilman, I feel that we need to be at a higher level of professionalism. We need to, for example, you can agree to disagree whether or not I feel the color should be red and you think it should be blue. But we shouldn't be vindictive. We shouldn't be hateful to each other. Because one day, even though you disagreed with me on that particular issue, we can come together and agree on another issue. And human nature is such that if you create that barrier of hate, nobody works together anymore. People put up barriers, and you just never get through that. So you need to treat everybody with respect, and you need to, you just need to work well with each other.
Thank you. Jim, same question to you about if you're elected, how will you ensure a harassment-free workplace?
Well, I totally understand. I used to facilitate training in the military for females and sexual and for minorities. So I've always been a strong proponent of that. I do not like being falsely accused of something. When I first came to this city, I saw a lot of corruption. And I started asking questions, and people got irritated. And yes, one city manager left because I asked too many questions. And she ended up getting an extra bonus on top of it. Then I started asking another one. Same thing. I never talked to him other than professionally and asking questions, what is going on? When somebody fibs to me, they purposely give me false information. I couldn't deal with that in the military, and I don't think city councilmen should do that either. We have an absolute right to ask questions, and if somebody wants to use that as a harassment claim, it's sick, but they get away with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephen, we'll wrap up with you.
My mom always told me, treat people the way you want to be treated. I think it's called the golden rule. And we have to be respectful of people, especially when we disagree. And if somebody's going to yell at you, you don't have to yell back. If somebody's going to accuse you of something, you don't have to accuse back. I think what we have to do is just realize that as elected officials and working with the city employees and the other interested parties that we work with, there are going to be heated disagreements. But we need to be respectful, and we need to check ourselves if we're losing control, and we always need to keep the golden rule in mind and treat people the way we want to be treated.
Thank you. We'll start with Jim on this next question. Two questions, really. So, Jim, would you support a smoking ban at the beach and in parks? And what do you think could be done about all the fireworks that go off in the community?
Me this time, right?
Yes.
I just want to check. Okay. I'm for the smoking ban. I don't think people should be smoking on the beach. I don't think they should be smoking. If they want to commit slow suicide, that's their problem, okay? But don't subject other people to it. I grew up in a foster home with a smoker, and I had emphysema for years, so it was totally wrong. That's an ill-conceived concept, a slow suicide type of situation. As far as fireworks, I don't like fireworks. I've heard enough artillery rounds and things going off. I can live with it. but I don't like to see the dogs frightened about it. And I'm glad to see our police department is putting means together to stop the fireworks. So we have to stop the fireworks, and I don't want to see any more smoking in the Mar Vista apartments either. Thank you.
Thank you. Laura, same question to you about smoking ban at the beach and parks, and also your thoughts about fireworks in the community.
Well, I would certainly consider a smoking ban for areas of the beach. When we were conducting the coastal cleanup, one of the biggest problems, the most common piece of litter that we would find were cigarette butts. And that's so disrespectful to our environment and so harsh on our society, the chemicals that come along with the cigarette butts. So I would definitely consider it. I know that as far as fireworks are concerned, that it's a huge problem in our city. I don't know if we levy fines quite yet, like Oxnard does, but I would maybe recommend that. And I know our police has a hard time trying to enforce any kind of law against fireworks. There's got to be a better solution somewhere. Hopefully we'll find it.
Thank you. Stephen, same question to you.
I think we should ban smoking at the beach because I've picked up thousands of cigarette butts. I mean thousands. And it's amazing. You just wonder how in the world does somebody smoke cigarettes to that amount? It's crazy. So for that reason, I think we should ban it. I think we should contact the city of Fillmore and say, what are you thinking? Seriously, how many, I mean, because we pay the price for them making a quick buck. And, you know, I wondered, like, how do they get away with that? They had the audacity to criticize Port Hueneme for considering marijuana, yet they're over there selling big firecrackers every year that causes all kinds of problems in the county at large, but we let them get away with it. So why don't we tax them? Yeah, okay.
All right, thank you, Stephen. Richard, same question to you about smoking bans and fireworks.
I don't like smoking. I've never smoked. But the country still allows you to buy cigarettes. And I don't want our police force spending their valuable time enforcing a smoking ban on the beaches. I would much rather make it a voluntary thing, from education to kids at an early age. I don't want a smoking cop. I mean, I hate smoking. I hate the cigarette butts. I hate the trash. But it's just like you create a feel-good law that there's not going to be anybody to enforce it, but it's going to create fights. You know, people are going to come there and be self-righteous, and you got to stop this. And then there's going to be a fight about that, and we're going to have to call the police in for that. So, sounds good, but I wouldn't be all that thrilled about passing such an ordinance.
Thank you. Okay, candidates, thank you all. We've done pretty well, but we didn't get to all the questions. We are about ready to begin with our closing statements so that we end on time. But before we do that, how about a round of applause for all these candidates?
Thank you.
Dan did not answer the last question.
Oh, I'm sorry, Dan. I did pass you, didn't I?
Yeah, but that's all right.
No.
Jim tried to.
Well, they're going to dock my pay, but thank you for pointing that out. So, Dan, the question to you is, how come the moderator skipped you? No,
cigarettes and fireworks.
Yeah. Would you support smoking ban and fireworks?
Yeah, I'm torn on that because if you had a designated area for the smoking, maybe at the beach or something, away, an upwind, how are you going to do that? I don't know. I cannot be more against smoking. Smoking friends of mine know that. They tend to go away and get away from me with it. I remember being on airplanes when the first 5 rows were smoking, the next 5 rows were not, in a tube. So I don't know how that would work. But they've done it, and you have to stand 25 feet away from the door when you go outside to smoke. They used to smoke in restaurants and bars. When I bounced in bars, I had police officers come in and ask me, how can you be in great shape and stand in here? He goes, we put the window down after we spend 5 minutes walking to a bar in the winter time, just so that they could get the smoke out of their clothes. Fireworks, you can't stop it. They go up in the air, they disappear. By the time the police get there, if you don't have neighbors that point at whoever did it, and they're not going to do that, then there's nothing can be done. Unless they see it go off, they can't stop whoever it is. So I don't know. I mean, let's get real.
Thank you, Dan. Okay, some quick announcements before we do our closing statements. There will be another forum hosted here in Port Hueneme. That'll be on Tuesday, October 16th. It'll be at the Orvine Carpenter Community Center, and that begins at 7 p.m. The doors will open at 6:30, and that's open to the public, and the city council candidates have all been invited. So Tuesday, October 16th at the Orvine Center. I'd also like to point out that the League is a nonprofit. We have a membership table in the back as you're leaving. We have information there if you want to learn about the League, anything like that. We also have a little donation jar if you're feeling inspired. We appreciate all the help. To put on a forum like this takes a lot of help, and I'd like to acknowledge all of the volunteers. We had up front here Bob Braitman and Carmen Hurd doing our sorting. Our timers were Carol Lindberg and Cheryl Collard. Helping us with passing out cards. We had Karen, Doris, and also we had Pat Butler's working the membership table. You heard from Betsy Patterson earlier, and sort of my boss, Pat Essick, who is running voter services this year. So how about a round of applause for all of them? And lastly, this will be available both on kadytv.net and also on the city's website. If you want to watch it later, just go to where you find out about agendas on the website or kadytv.net. So with that, we will begin our closing statements. We're going to go in the reverse order. Stephen, you're first. You have 1.5 minutes. We will give them the full 1.5 minutes.
Thank you again for hosting tonight. Thank you all for coming out. From my first days at Hueneme Christian School through college at Cal Lutheran, I've always loved the city of Port Hueneme. When I was in my 20s, I bought my first condo at Surfside 2, I believe. It was probably the least desirable condo there was. It was on the bottom floor right next to the main gate. But it got me in this community, and here I am 32 years later running for the city council. A lot has changed over those years. My campaign is simple and seeks to get the city focused on the basics: the beach, the budget, and business. To me, that's what it's all about. In each of those categories, we need safety to be the highest priority, especially for our retiree population, single mothers, and new college graduates looking to live in a beach community. We can't just expect the city to solve all community issues. All of us must get involved and invest ourselves through community service or just speaking out. We need open and honest debate without personally attacking anyone. Together we have huge significance, and when we focus on the things that bind us together, si se puede, yes we can. In the words of the Lorax from Dr. Seuss, and I've used this earlier this week, but I'm going to use it again, unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better. It's not. Thank you all for caring a whole awful lot and being here tonight. Things are going to start getting better because we're here and we're going to work together. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll hold the applause to the very end. Thank you. And our next candidate is Jim Hensley.
When I first ran 4 years ago, I ran on a program called Get a Grip on City Government. I ran on a program of transparency and openness, and I felt there could be possible corruption in the city. As I got further involved, I started finding little elements of possible corruption, and as I started asking more and more questions, it irritated more people. Nonetheless, even despite all the intimidation and the threats and the legal people, I've forced, personally, restoring the school crossing guard program and Save the Life program, the lifeguard program. I helped save the Boys and Girls Club. Started working for equitable taxes and business licenses, still in process. I've been fighting to get, and I'm in a lot of trouble for it. People didn't want to stick around after I started pushing for it, but ensuring transparency of our city government and stop the secret deals behind closed doors. Moving the television or the forum time up forward to the meeting instead of making people and parents set it to the end of the meetings. And then the television people can sit at home and watch what's going on. I started working on a strong economy, and with the help of some of the other people, we're developing a stronger economy, and we still have a long ways to go. I promoted tourism, and it's starting to build. I helped rejuvenate the Port Hueneme City beaches.
Thank you,
and
Jim.
Miranda
We're going to
Park.
have to cut you off there. That's 1.5 minutes. Thank you. Our next candidate is Richard Rollins.
Since I moved here over 10 years ago, I've put my money where my mouth is. For many of you involved in the community, I utilized my skills to raise money to develop programs for youth. We now have programs at Miranda Park, which the city does not have to fund. We have programs at the museum, speaker series. We have a program for kids to come out and learn about their community. I truly believe that as a community, we have to work with all stakeholders, businesses, the school district, and especially you. So I challenge all of you to get involved. There's a very few people in the community that really get involved, and I challenge you to do that, whether it be teaching a kid's class, cleaning the beach, or serving on a committee. We don't know it all, and no one person knows it all, but we want to get input from you. I pride myself to asking questions, not having the answers, but developing those answers from listening to the community.
Thank you very much. Our next candidate is Dan Tullis.
I'm hoping that when this all comes to an end here in November, that if I'm on this council, that I can make a difference. I came up with a thing around Man Up, which I believe is Hugh Man Up, but I call it Dan Up. As an entertainer, if you want your show to be better, you Dan up and put me in it. I don't care how good your show is, I will raise it another level just by being there. And I proved it ever since I started. Just to use just a few words, I'm dedicated, adept, no nonsense, undaunted, and perseverant. And those will all be factors that I bring to this position here. And I believe that with that, and the fact that I have done that, literally traveling around the world with this cast or that cast or another cast, people coming in, walking into a room, and within 2 hours reading a script and being ready to start working on it. That's how quickly we have to be able to do that, and I guarantee that can be done here. And especially if we have the backing of the people who actually want us to do that very thing. If you've got an idea, bring it. I don't care what it is, because you don't know whether that's a good one or not until you put a shot at it. NASA said every time they blew up a rocket, it was not a failure, it was a learning experience. So every time you come with an idea, we may learn from it and increase everything for everybody. Thanks.
Thank you. Our last candidate is Laura Hernandez.
Thank you, David, and thank you, League of Women Voters, again for hosting tonight, and thank you to our audience who took the time to be out here tonight. I hope you leave here better informed about who you'd like to be on your city council come November. This election cannot just be about us, however. It's got to be about all of us. It must be about what we can do together, working together, and finding a sense of common purpose in what we do here in Port Hueneme. It's all about making Port Hueneme a better place to live. I've lived here for 20 years. I want to live here another 30, 40, as long as I live. I'm not going anywhere. So I encourage you to please get out and vote. Tell your friends, tell your family members not only to register, but to also vote. So thank you again for your time.
How about a round of applause again for all of you? And as a reminder, you'll be voting for 3 candidates, correct? So you have 3 of these candidates will be on your, or you'll choose 3 of these 5 candidates when you vote. The last day to register, I believe, is October 22nd, and sample ballots will be coming out around October, the absentees will go out about October 8th. So with that, thank you all for coming. I'm David Marin. Thank you again. Good night.